Hi, everybody. I am Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof. And today I have a special guest, Larry Perkins. And I am going to read Larry's bio before I say a proper hello. Larry Perkins is recognized as one of the top experts in crowd management, safety, and event planning with more than 42 years of experience. His advice and teachings have taken him to Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, England, Amsterdam, Denmark, El Salvador, Mexico, Canada, and more. Larry has appeared on numerous TV and radio programs, including NBC TV Dateline, ESPN's Outside the Lines, ABC, CBS, Fox, just to name a few. He is a certified facilities executive, a certified protection professional, and a crowd management professional. Larry is author of Buck 72, A Destiny of Will, From Farm to Fame, and grew up in Enfield, North Carolina. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. I am delighted to be here today. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing fabulous, and I'm really excited to just have a conversation with you today and let people know, about your career, about your book, and about Enfield.
Specifically about Enfield. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't put his book down, which we'll get to in a little bit. But tell viewers a little bit about some of the celebrities that you have met during your 42-year career, because you have met a few people.
Yes, thank you so very much. And, I've been very fortunate and throughout my career being raised on a farm, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, when I left the farm and went to New York and actually in New Jersey, I was pretty fortunate after being a PI and getting assigned to the Meadowlands Sports Complex in New Jersey, where I've met 7 presidents in my lifetime, and then any celebrity that you can think of, from Bruce Springsteen, who happens to be one of my favorite people, to the late, great Frank Sinatra, to Bette Midler, to you name the artist, I've met them, including the 3 tenors. Luciani, Pavarotti, and I became good friends. Pele, the famous soccer player, became a good friend of mine. And of course, the late, great Muhammad Ali was a good friend. And Mick Jagger and I hung out for a little bit as well. So it was something to meet all those stars and to interact with them. And as I say, I never thought growing up as a poor young guy from the farms that I would be able to meet so many celebrities. But, I'm thankful for all of that.
Yeah, that's really exclusive, I would say, because not a whole lot of people get to meet that many stars or that many celebrities in the course of a lifetime. So you had regular communication, regular interaction, correct?
I did. Yeah. So it was really something special. And as I say, I'm very fortunate to have known those, and not to minimize it in the least, but meeting Pope John Paul II was also another highlight of my career. So I was very thankful to meet the Pope as well.
Well, that is awesome. And then besides all that, you are an author of several books, and including, and it's back here in my bookshelf somewhere. I can't turn around right now, but it's a Buck 72, A Destiny of Will, From Farm to Fame. And you have mentioned that it was a very cathartic experience writing that book. So tell me why.
Well, I had spent, because I grew up on a farm and because I grew up with an abusive father, and my mom had left to go to New York to chase her dreams when I was just a young lad. I had not seen her, and from the time I was 6 to the time I went to see her again. So it was a long process, and being brought up like I say on the farm, where my dad actually lived in a slave hut on this plantation, and they act like it's slaves. They act like they were still in slavery time, and he'd get up, 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to we have to make the fire. But then he would beat and whip me and, keep me out of school and everything else. So the reason I wrote the book is because I really didn't start it until I was pretty much made a career for myself. I was, I worked for Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, as you say, for a long time. I had spent 24 years there, and I thought I had a pretty successful career. I said, now let me just write about my career. Well, I started writing about my career, and I guess I got about 20 pages into it, and I realized I didn't know who I was, because it asked you, the book and writing make you take a look at who you are and why you do the things you do. And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I had no clue of who I was. So then I started researching about how to write a book. So I had already written several books, as you mentioned, but those were technical manuals, crowd safety and human behavior, event planning and emergencies and that kind of stuff. But when you're writing about yourself or writing a memoir, it takes on a different process. One is, the technical manual, you're telling, as you know. But when you're writing a memoir, you can't tell. You got to show through diction, through feelings, through emotion, and a whole lot of other things. And as I say, I didn't know who I was, and studied and started writing about myself. And as I did, emotions and the discovery that I discovered who I was really, really telling. And in fact, I made a commitment to myself to write 500 words a day. All right. So my job here at PNC Arena in Raleigh requires me to be here at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we do events. I get home at midnight, but I was still committed to writing 500 words. I would sit at my table and I start writing. It's okay, I'll write 500 words. And some days I would cry all night. And then some days when I looked up from the paper, I could see the sun coming through the window because I had written and stayed up all night. But as I say, while it was interesting, it was also scary because I didn't know who I was going to find the next time I put pen to paper. So it took me 11 years before I decided to publish it, by the way, because it was a healing. It was a thing for me. But as I shared it, people thought, you know what? Your story is in so many other people. Why don't you share it? Because you could heal, you could help somebody. And that's the thing that I think that motivated me to publish it, because I know that it took me a long time to heal from writing it and stuff. And frankly, I still cry every time I read it today or think about it, because there's just things that happen in it. But I always say, do write and tell your story, because you'll leave that legacy behind. Your children, your parents, everybody else, things that they think they know about you, they don't know about you until you write it down and put it to paper. So I'm very pleased that I've left something behind for my kids to look at and say, oh, this is what my father went through, and this is what made him the person and the man he is. So thank you for asking about the book.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I originally met you because you did a book signing at Daniel's restaurant in Apex. And I had been there to pick up pizza one time, and I saw your book on the counter, and I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? And so, once I had a copy, I couldn't put it down. It was so captivating, and you really spun your story in just a captivating, readable way. There were no dead parts. There were no boring parts, as some memoirs have, but I could not put it down. I was really mesmerized by it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So what was it like?
And I tell you what, Michelle, that means so much to me, coming from a professional like yourself, to be able to say that, because, when you're writing, sometimes you don't know how it's going to be perceived. you know, you try to capture everything, but you don't know until you have somebody like yourself read it and say that. And those pointers are always good to have that feedback, to have the expert to look at it and decide, well, yeah, this is good. These are dead spots. This is took too long for the build up or different parts, and this is how you should close. And how one chapter goes to the next chapter. So I thank you. Appreciate it.
That is so true. And I, as a professional ghostwriter and book collaborator, I see a lot, and I see a lot of really cruddy stuff, I'll just say. and I see a lot of really good. I just finished Phil Knight's Shoe Dog, and that was an incredible memoir. So when you pick up a book, you gave people a reason. You gave me as a reader a reason to turn the page, and that was on from beginning to end. So yeah, definitely. So
thank you.
To turn to Enfield, what was it like growing up in Enfield, North Carolina, which was a very small town in the mid-50s? What was that like? And if you want to, share anything, any slides or anything to show us, that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah, that'd be great. And thank you for allowing me to do that. And let me, I'll take you up on that. I will share a couple of things with you. I won't go through this entire piece, but yes, it was really something growing up in Enfield, North Carolina. It was a time like no other. In a lot of ways, Michelle, it was, and this is just a copy of my book, A Destiny of Will. And the title, to me, the secondary title, Destiny of Will, says a lot. It spoke to me so vividly as I was writing this book, because I'm thinking, I'm not here today without a destiny, without my hard work of getting it. And I think people have to have destiny. You are where you are because of what you do to make it, to make life. So I think that's the thing there. So, and then of course I say when I left Enfield, I became a PI and went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I won't bore you with all the details, but you mentioned that I had spent 24 years at the Meadowlands Sports Complex in New Jersey, which was a home away from home. As I said, I met many stars, many celebrities, 7 presidents there in my lifetime, so it was pretty good. As you can see, some of the people that I met, including Pele and the late great Ali, and of course the Pope up there, and a couple of presidents and that sort of thing. George Bush, and of course you're looking at President Ronald Reagan there as well. I mentioned that I had written another book, Crowd Safety and Survival, and this is one of my first books that I wrote on human behavior and that sort of thing. But to address your question, what was it like growing up in Enfield? This is a picture of the actual farm that I grew up on right here. This is a plantation. It's 1,200 acres of land. And this is where it all began for me. I lived with my grandfather until I was 9 years old, until my mom came home to take me to live with my dad. And this is where she took me. Down in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, back in the day, that tree that's there was a grove where we used to go and hang out at during plantation season and doing celebrations. But that tree today still has the iron shackles that they used to hang blacks in. And that's where the Ku Klux Klan used to hang blacks in on our farm, was there. And as I said, you can't see the house from here, but I grew up in a slave hut with my parents. It was just a 2-room house that was used for former slaves. And that was something that was there as well. As I say, my mom came to get me when I was 9 to take me to live with my dad. And this is the road that she pulled in, that my uncle was driving, pulled in this road right here. And you can't see the house back there, but setting in the back was a big, majestic house. the plantation owner's house right there. And our house, the slave house, was behind that. But when we pulled into that path, it's forever etched into my mind what it was like. My life and day changed forever once I pulled into that path. And as I say, we worked night and day, picking cotton, working in the fields, doing all those type of things. While I'm proud and not proud of it, at the age of 14 years old, I actually set a cotton picking record. No pun intended, but I set a county record of picking 404 pounds of cotton per day, and which was the highest amount of cotton picked outside of slavery in that county. And I could outwork any of the adults that were there at such a young age. So it was tough there. And the thing that kept me going was once in a while I would receive letters from my mom in New York, and I carried those letters with me just about everywhere I go. They were soiled, but to get those letters is the thing that kept me going. And I always wrote my mother, whom I had not seen, as I mentioned, since I was 9, and said, when I turn 16, I'm coming to find you. And I end up doing that and going to find it. But the path I chose, leaving Enfield, was not necessarily an easy path. And what I mean by that is, when I left Enfield, when I ran away, I decided that I was going to go and join the Army. They wouldn't take me because I had asthma. Then I was going to join the Navy. They wouldn't take me. So I had to work 3 jobs and go to school at the same time. But the path I chose was the right path. Now, we know that we always have blind paths. You can go to the right, you can go to the left. But no matter which path you take, there's always going to be some obstacles in it. Doesn't mean that it goes straight up. It goes out a little bit, then it goes up. But you still have to work at that path. Now, one of the things about Enfield that you mentioned, that growing up in the 50s and 60s, was that as a Black African American, we had to walk on the other side of the street or bow our heads or look down when a white person passed us. So that's what we end up having to do there a lot of times because of how Jim Crow was in full effect at the time and everything else. So that was a part that was growing up in there. So this is a picture, but I'll wait till we get to that point.
Okay. Now, I just want to know, like, you came to New York with a $1.72 in your pocket, which is the book's title. So just tell briefly about that, about the man who helped you, about, you had angels of mercy, so to speak, helping you out, who didn't know you and would give you, a break in life, seeing who you were and what you were trying to accomplish. So tell a little bit about the $1.72 story.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's that, when you think about how fortunate you are in life and how things are placed in your path for a reason, I'm always reminded of that. I'm always honored about that. But yes, the day that I decided to run away at 16, as I say, I had worked. My dad would take my money, and then I ended up saving my money secretly. And then because when I told my mom I'm coming to find her when I turned 16, I had to save my money. I had change. I had a few dollars, but mostly change that I could tell you. I would count them, secretly counting my coins at night, underneath the cover and different things. So one day came and I said, today's the day. It was a weekday. My mom and dad were out in the field. When I say my mom, I'm talking about my stepmom, who really became my mom. She was my soul. She took care of me as a stepmom, and I called her mom and that sort of thing. But the day came, and I said, okay, I took a bird bath because we didn't have running water. We had to go and bring back water. And I took my bath in this tin tub and put on clothes and then said goodbye to the house. I said goodbye to our dogs, and I walked out the back path to go to town to catch a 12 trailway bus to New York. So I bought a one-way ticket to go to New York, and then I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell my half siblings or anybody that I was leaving, and I left. So the trailway bus went, and I keep in mind, this is my very first time of leaving North Carolina, first time of being on a bus, almost the first time of being out of infield, other than 18 miles away in Rocky Mount. So the bus gets to New York, and the first thing that you recall that, oh my God, I'm not in infield anymore, because there's no trees. It was just a concrete jungle. And the bus terminal, the Port Authority bus terminal that the bus pulled up into, infield could have fit twice inside this bus terminal that's there. So now you walk in, and to this day, I can't remember what kind of clothes I had with me. I don't remember having a suitcase with me at that point. So I'm standing in the middle of the Port Authority, wondering, seeing all these people go back and forth and everything, thinking, where are all these folks going? You know, what do I do? So I go, okay. All I had with me was a letter from my mother, right? And that she had written me, all stained and everything else. So I decided I got to trust somebody. So I decided, after seeming like hours waiting there, I saw this gentleman and said, can you tell me where this is? And the first thing he said, you're not from around here, are you? So I don't know if it was the burnt skin that I had from being out on the farm, or my southern accent, or what, or it might have been the blue suede shoes that I had on at the time. Who knows? But anyway, this gentleman said to me, he said, because now keep in mind, the reason I showed him the envelope is because at the time, my mother didn't have a phone. I had never used a phone, and all I had was her address. And she never knew I was coming. So he said, well, how much money you got? You know, because we're going to take a subway. So I looked at my pocket, and all I had left was $1.72. Hence a $1.72. And I thought it was fitting that we named the book $1.72, because to me, that was the pivotal time of either making it or breaking it. Going, because all I had was $1.72. I didn't have enough money to go back to infield, and I didn't have enough money to go forward to find her at that time. So he said to me, come on, I'm going that way. So we went down in the subway, which I had never been in, scary. You could hear the trains rattling, feel the air, smell the subway, as the subways do. And he said, now my mom lived on 132nd Street, and he got off 125th Street. He said, now go up to the next stop, get off, and walk back. And when I did, I walked back and went into 132nd Street, went up to her address. This lady was sitting on the porch, on the stoop, as they call them. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm here to see Maddie. And she said, who are you? And I said, I'm her son. And she said, son. And so she said, she went up, rang the bell, and my mother peeked her head out the window, which is on the third floor, and said, your son Larry is here. She said, oh, and she came down and found me. So that was the story about the gentleman that I found in the subway, that I trusted in subway. You know, you sometimes, you know, I wish I got his information, his address, or different things to say thank you, or to send him something, a note to say, you actually saved my life. Because if you think about that moment, being a young kid in New York City, I could have trusted the wrong person. Mm-hmm. It could have been a gang member. It could have been anybody. It could have been, you know, somebody said, come on outside and we'll, you know, and they could have robbed me or whatever it is. So I'm thankful today that I trusted that particular gentleman. My instincts were right, and I was very pleased with how it came out.
Yeah, and then you progress from there, but then you eventually, through the course of your career, and things, as we know, kind of come full circle sometimes. And so I know, didn't you buy your first suit in Enfield at the
I
store
did.
that you now
I,
own?
I
So,
did.
so tell a little bit about that. If you have any more slides to share, please feel free, but just, share a little bit about that coming full circle and buying your first suit at this store, going back to Enfield and buying the store that you bought your first suit in.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah. So when I was 14 so years old, I decided to lay away my first suit in this store. It's called the Myers Department Store in Enfield. So I put 25 cents on it a week. Some weeks I put $1 on it. Yeah. Now the suit wasn't more than like $15 at the time, $20 at the most. But it took me forever to get this suit out. And and the suit wasn't the traditional suit, by the way. It was a plaid jacket with white pants. And the guy said, "That looks sharp on you." He said, "You know what? That would set that suit off? A nice pair of white patent leather shoes." So I bought the shoes as well. So that's what took it up to like $20 because of that. And by the way, I couldn't wait to get that suit out of layaway. And the day that I did, I took it home, and I used to go to church on Sundays, right? I used to go by myself. So I took my bird bath again, right? And we didn't have lotion like people have today or anything like that. So my mom would cook, and on the stove, she would take the grease that was left over and put it in this tin jar, and it would gel. And so after my bath, I went in and got a big scoop of it, greased myself all up and down like this, shining like a new penny. And I put on my brand new suit, and I stepped out of the house. And when I did, the dogs started following me. They were smelling me. The gnats started flying around me and that sort of thing. Then I said, "What in the world?" So then I smelled myself. I smelled like fried chicken. So, so it was something. But the greatest part is when I got to church, the guys on the doorsteps who are giving you the program, they're looking at you. And they're looking at me up and down. And I'm thinking, that's right. You wish you had this.
Yeah. They must notice how great I look.
They must notice how great I look. But yes. So years later, once I came back to North Carolina, I had always come back to North Carolina, during the summers. And sometimes I would get in my car on a Saturday night and say, "Let's go to North Carolina." And I would just drive to North Carolina. And sometimes I would see family, and sometimes we wouldn't. Sometimes we just drive around the 1 or 2 blocks of downtown Enfield and head back to New Jersey. But I've always loved Enfield. I've always, that's home for me. And so a few years ago, I would read online with people who are from Enfield and say, "Oh God, how run down it is. There's nothing there. There's poor. It's, the whole 9 yards." I'm thinking, I have been fortunate. In spite of my beginnings of coming up, and despite of having $1.72 when I finally left home, I've been fortunate. Lord has provided a way for me. And I said, "You know what? Stop talking about how bad it is. Let me go back and try to do something." So I bought a house there. And then I bought the store. The same department store that I later with my first suit in was available. And I spent a year or two rehabbing it. And then we turned it into a nice ballroom, a place where people can go and just relax and have a good time. Some people tell me, like the high school reunions, for instance, they said, "We've never had a high school reunion in Enfield." It was 40 years. They never had a high school reunion. and they would go to Rocky Mount, the next town, until I bought the store and rehabbed it and did it. But let me show you a couple of slides anyway.
Yeah, please do.
About Enfield. So this is the store now, how it looks, and this is a gala that we actually did last year. It was a Christmas gala and award celebration that we had at the store, and now I call it the Collective Center now. Changed the name from a department store to the Collective Center, and collective for a reason. It takes many minds. It takes many different aspects to make positive change. So this is an awards dinner where we actually created this award last year to honor all 10 Halifax County Teachers of the Year. So there were 10 of them, and then we actually celebrated them there last year. And here are the 10 teachers that were honored. Sadly, the one gentleman that's in the middle, the big gentleman there in the middle, he was actually named as Principal of the Year last December, actually. Unfortunately, he passed away from coronavirus this past June. He succumbed to that. But he was a man that he took that school that he had from nothing to really made it a contender for sure. And then that's the superintendent, and these are the county commissioners and everybody else. But this is what you do to give back. And here is a young lady here, Ms. Cofield. Dr. Cofield was a person who won our Legacy Award last year. And the reason is because she was pioneer in her day. She's from Enfield. But during the 60s and 70s, for sure, and stuff, the Black teachers were being fired if they went out on the protest for voting and different things. So she's the one that went to the Superior Court of North Carolina and got some of the rulings overturned to allow for Black teachers to have jobs to this day. But sadly, they chased her out of town. They burned crosses on her lawn, and she ended up in New Jersey. So we brought her back and gave her this award called the Legacy Award last year, Dr. Cofield. And it was very, very nice to do that. This is the mayor of Enfield. I was his campaign manager, Mr. Wayne Anderson. So it was very nice to be able to support a person. He was from Enfield, and then he went to Jersey City, New Jersey for a long time and came back to be mayor. And I was so proud to support him in these endeavors. But again, I think giving back is one of those things that you do, that you have to do, that if you have been fortunate in your lifetime, just don't be greedy. Share it with people, because every day that you make a difference in somebody's life, the better it is for all of us. And I'm very proud to be able to go back and share some of this with the residents of Enfield.
Yeah, and coming from Enfield and coming back to Enfield, you're trying to revitalize it, and they have a committee, but what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of having a small town itself?
Well, one of the disadvantages is that taxes, which means that the residents have to pay higher taxes because they don't have industry. So that's one of the disadvantages of not being able to support the residents in the town, because we have to pay higher taxes. The other piece is our schools become disadvantaged because of the taxes, because you don't have industry, because you don't have a lot of residents, then it becomes poor. You can't get the students of things. For instance, one of the things that we're suffering right now with during this pandemic is broadband. Our kids don't have Wi-Fi. Our kids don't have these type of things. We have a small library in town where the kids have to go to do their homework, which puts them further at a disadvantage because they don't have Wi-Fi in school. So there is a lot of disadvantages being in a small town, but there are a lot of positive things too. For instance, everybody knows everybody, for sure. You don't have to lock your doors and that sort of thing. Old Fred still drives his pickup truck, and you know him by the sound of his car as he passes. But wholesomeness is the other thing. One of the things that I love when I go there is that it's about an hour, 15 minutes from where I am now. But when I get off the major thoroughfare and get onto the little back road that's going in, my anxiety, my blood pressure, everything immediately starts to calm down. It's a whole new world. It's almost like going to the beach, but you're just going to a farm. In fact, I call my house the farm beach house, because of the wind, how they blow the cornfields and different things, so that it mimics water to me. But there, again, everybody knows everybody. We get along, and everybody is trying to make it the best they can. We got a lot of residents who came back down from New Jersey, bought up houses, and they fixed them up, and they really, really looks good. And I think it's going to be a place to live and raise a family. It is, but it's going to even be more so later.
Wow, that is awesome. And it's always nice to be part of almost like a grassroots effort to rebuild a town and bring life back into it. And, hopefully other small towns throughout the United States will see what you're doing with Enfield and, use it as a model, because, if it can happen there, it can give somebody else hope that it can happen in their town. So, so what are you doing through the committee and through your efforts to build up Enfield? I know you have the collective center, but, there's a need for, I guess, restaurants and, maybe some industry or something. So what are you doing currently to make that happen?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well, we are doing a lot of things trying to get, bring awareness to the town. We did a thing on WRAL about 4 months ago talking about broadband specifically. So they did a whole feature, an hour-long feature on it and making awareness. Opportunity zone is another thing that we're looking at too, and looking at that. So we have a committee looking at opportunity zones and doing different things. We're acquiring 400 acres of land at the junction of 95 and the road that leads into our town. And so we're doing different things. So we have all kinds of committees, project committees and different things, building committees. So I think right now we got a lot of people that are sitting on these various committees that we're on. We're pushing it. We got an economic development committee, which I sit on. I'm one of the commissioners that's on that committee as well. And planning, the infrastructure and planning takes a long time before you get to the shovel in the ground. So you got to go out and you got to do plans, you got to do studies, you got to do an analyst. Then you got to get the funding for it. You got to go and get grants. You got to do different things, and you got to compete for them. But we're a tier 1 town, which is the poorest town of all. Well, I should say the poorest county in all of North Carolina. There are 100 counties, and we're the poorest county in all of the 100 counties. So you would think that we would have a lot of money coming in. The problem is, I don't think we had in the past had the personnel or the people to go out and start applying for it like you should be applying for it. That's where we are right now. And so we're applying for all these different grants, like I say, opportunity zones, that sort of thing. So I would give it another 5 to 10 years and it'd be a completely different town. We're remodelizing our streets, with a lot of the light lines and the power lines, grids are up above. We're burying those. We're changing our street lights, and we're doing a lot of things. And now we just got, believe it or not, we just got an auto zone in town. So it's like, that's a big deal. It's almost like the first time we got a stoplight in town. Everybody's excited about it. So we're looking at restaurants, we're looking at other things. So I'm on the planning board as well. So we've set aside some parcels of land for like McDonald's and different places like that. So once you get those in, I have to say that in the last maybe 3 years, we probably had another 10 different businesses open up in Enfield. So I'm proud about that. I'm really proud about that we got small stuff, but it's being open. And like you say, it was a catalyst. How do you start? And I'm proud to say I'm on the ground floor to help start that.
Yeah. Now, what do you envision 5 to 10? And I know that's a broad span. 10 years from now, how do you envision Enfield?
I envision Enfield as expanding because there's a city limit. I think we'll annex some additional property. I think that in 5 to 10 years, we'll have what we call a major block, meaning like big box stores and other things that come in and redo your whole downtown. So that's what we're looking at. Our plan calls for redoing the entire downtown. And once you get that in, then so it's almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Yeah. So is the business coming first or people? The business don't want to come because you don't have the people. So we got to make it almost like a joint venture. We got to say, if you do this, we're going to do this, and to get the people in to kind of marry the two to get them up. So I think that's one of the challenges right now, of making sure that we have the people and then going out and get the business. But we got to give the business incentives to come to a small town. But I see it still being a rural community. I should say the characteristics of a rural community. We don't want to make it a city, but we want to have that hometown feel. And I think that's what we're looking at, is making sure that we maintain some of the innocence of a hometown like we have it right now, but at the same time, give us some growth.
Yes, I love that. And I've been making monthly trips to Mount Airy, which is Mayberry, North Carolina, and they have a very vibrant downtown, area. Yes. And so, I see the glory in, there's a great mix of stores. The people are super friendly. And, I'm sure that's what you envision for Enfield, just having it be have the amenities of city life, but keep that quaint charm downtown feel.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what we want to do, is to keep that quaint downtown feel for sure.
Yeah.
And I think now a lot of small towns are realizing that you don't want a big market, but you still have to do it. And I think a lot of towns are doing that. And I think that's what we're going to do as well. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, you should be. Absolutely. So my final question to you is, you've had a 42-year career, okay? When others who would have a 42-year career are thinking about retiring, settling down, rocking in the rocking chair, that's not you, is it? No, you're still going strong. So what's your secret, and what drives you to still go strong instead of wanting to take a book in a rocking chair on your front porch somewhere and read?
Stupidity, probably. No, but I always say, what are you going to do? Like you're talking about, my passion is doing what I do. My passion is being engaged. And you hear about people, once they retire, then like they sit in the rocking chair and they're gone, or they sit down, and then what do? And then you hear people about working after they leave work. So if you're going to work after you leave work anyway, why not stay where you are if you can, and that sort of thing. So I still have passion of things that I like doing, and I do them. Again, I bought the house in Enfield, so I go there and work on it. It's a 100-year-old house. I work on it, I fix it up, and that keeps me busy. I like photography, so I do photo hunting a lot. So, and then processing those type of things. So, and then of course, reading and writing. I still love writing for sure. And so I'm doing some of the things I like in that, and with COVID, I mean, if you think about you're going to retire, you'll be locked in your house anyway. So you can't travel the country and that sort of thing. And frankly, as you mentioned, I had a very good career, 42 years in the business. but I've gotten to travel the world. I've been around the world twice. I've gotten to probably 35 countries in my lifetime. Because part of what I did was I was the president of our association, the International Association of Assembly Managers, which took me around the world. My crowd management experience and when I have to go and teach people around the world about buildings and operations and different things, that's taken me around the world, as you mentioned. So I've got to see a lot of things. The things I haven't seen is the United States. So I want to be able to see the United States, and I think that's what I'll do once I do and finally retire. That's what I'll do. But I'm really happy and I love what I'm doing. I can't see myself sitting at home and doing nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, so I have one more question based on what you just said. Final question. And is this your final answer? Kind of thing. But that brought up a good point, is that if somebody is up and coming in their career, if they're at the beginning of their career and they love what they do, they're working 80 hours a week, what is your best number one tip for somebody to experience personal and professional success on the way up, while you're up, and then at the tail end of your career?
Well, I think the first thing you have to decide, is it a job or is it a career? Mm-hmm. That's the very first thing you have to decide in your mindset, and you have to make that choice. For me, it's always been a career, and when I look at it as a career, it's not work. I enjoy coming here because it's not work for me. It's a passion and things of that nature. And you got to feel it in your heart that it's a passion, like what you do. You got to feel it. You got to know that that's what you want to do, and you do it and you love it. Yes, it's a lot of work sometimes, but at the same time, it's reward. And if you can get satisfaction in your career and what you're doing, then by all means doing it. But if you dread going into work, if you dread what you're doing, it's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. It's not going to do anybody any good. You're going to complain about it. You're going to be mad about it. You're going to be upset about it. So my advice is, love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing, change it, because you don't want to find yourself doing something for 20 years and find out you still hate it. Because then that's going to shorten your life expectancy and span. Love what you're doing, and then going up the chain and coming down the chain, it will still serve you well if you still like it, for sure. So my advice to anybody: find what you like to do, find what you love to do, and stick to it.
That is sage advice coming from a seasoned pro.
Thank you.
Okay, so if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to connect with you on social media, where can people connect with you?
Well, I'm doing a lot of work now, as you mentioned before, at the Collective Society. So, if they want to connect with me, they can, email me at larryp@thecollectivecenter.com, larryp@thecollectivecenter.com, or they can just email me at larryp@buck72.com, and we can talk that way. So anybody want to call me, that'd be great.
That is awesome. And I just thank you so much for being here today, for giving us a snapshot into your career and life and passion. And it has been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Michelle. I really, really appreciate it being on. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to let people know that you can reach Winning Proof if you want to get in touch with me, if you have a book idea, if you have, need book coaching, anything, you can contact me at winningproof.com, or you can email me at winningproof@gmail.com, or you can find me on any of the social media networks, channels like LinkedIn, and all my videos, all my Winning Proof Unscripted are on YouTube now. So subscribe to that channel and you'll get notified every time I do a new one. And I'm on, Facebook and Twitter and all those social media channels. So, and you have to just be accessible nowadays. So thank you everybody for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.